Welcome back to BLOCKTV. I'm Yona Hockhauser, and today we are joined live from Zurich by Komodo CDO Katan Stavelman. Katan, thank you so much for joining us.
For having us. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
All right, now first start us off. Tell the audience a little bit, what is Komodo?
So in technical terms, Komodo is an open composable smart chain platform built on a multi-chain architecture. So what does this mean, right? What's a smart chain? As like I just said, smart chain platform. So in contrast, we do have a lot of single chain architecture platforms. For example, take Ethereum, right? So all smart contract transactions, right? The whole network load is basically funneled through one and the same blockchain. This can lead like to issues. I'm sure you remember like the CryptoKitties hype, which clogged up the Ethereum chain. I don't know, that was a year or two ago. Yeah, and so we figured we need like to change the architecture a little bit. We built this multi-chain architecture. So with a smart chain, a end user, a developer, a project basically gets known and a really own platform. It's like giving you your own Ethereum, right? That's what a smart chain is. And why is it composable? Because Komodo does offer a sort of blockchain plugins. So you could create your smart chain and you could like just attach whatever blockchain plugins you want to extend your native blockchain functionality, right? So that could be gaming, right? That could be gambling, that could be supply chains. I mean, the use cases and the tech itself is unlimited, right? It's really, it's huge. And this is like pretty much Komodo, right? We have a big variety of different tools, software technologies that do drive blockchain interoperability, right? We're trying to provide like a technology that's like entirely open and at the same time builds a sort of like bridge to all the other blockchain technologies and protocols, right? So this is like our big vision is not just like providing these fully independent blockchain solutions, but also connecting the entire blockchain space with our technology.
Now, you guys recently had a kind of a little bit of funny exchange on Twitter with Vitalik Buterin about one of these connecting chains when he tweeted out that in his opinion, it's embarrassing there's no solution to easily move between Ethereum and Bitcoin, to which you guys tweeted back, check out AtomicDex. So tell us, the viewers, what is AtomicDex?
So AtomicDex is our third generation DEX, right? Short for decentralized exchange. And our DEX is powered by a technology called cross-chain atomic swaps. Now, there's one thing I want to highlight. AtomicDex really looks back to over half a decade of development. The Binance Academy, for instance, gave us credit in 2014 atomic swap, which was basically the first fully automated cross-chain atomic swap in the world. And we've basically kept building up on this technology. With AtomicDex, we really reached a level where we turned this technology, first of all, mobile ready. This is available right now in an open public beta program with a native decentralized multi-kind wallet with a DEX integrated for Android as well as iOS. So you can now just like open the Google Play Store, type in AtomicDex, and you'll be able to download this like non-custodial, trustless, and fully decentralized multi-kind wallet. And I've just mentioned that it's not just a cross-chain atomic swap, it is basically a cross-protocol atomic swap technology. So we've reached a point, and we haven't really invested too much of time into spreading awareness regarding the technology. We just felt the last 6-7 years while we've been like building it wasn't like ready, it wasn't there. Now for over a year, we're like basically in a production environment. So with like over 5,000 users just on Android, right? We have another 2,000-3,000 users, like public users using it on iOS. And this is AtomicDex. It allows you to swap and trade like Bitcoin against all Bitcoin protocol-based tokens. But since it's a cross-protocol exchange, we also enable the trade from Ethereum, all ERC tokens, to Bitcoin and also between each other. So it is becoming this blockchain babelfish, right? Which basically able to communicate between different blockchains, and we're continuously extending our AtomicDex to support more third and second generation blockchain protocols.
Wow, you mentioned it is both It goes both across protocols as well as it being a DEX. It's decentralized. So here's the question. There's so many advantages to using a DEX, a decentralized exchange. Why would someone, and why are people still using centralized exchanges when there's so many DEXs out there and, like you mentioned, even available on iOS and Android?
I think there are many reasons. I mean, first of all, it's the user comfort, right? As a user, it's very comfortable just typing in a URL in your web browser, and you basically have your trading command central just right in front of you, okay? A lot of users just don't know the technology. I also believe that tech hasn't been as mature as it would need to be to reach a sort of like mainstream adoption that we see this huge shift. I mean, my personal opinion is that we're gonna have a time now where decentralized exchanges and centralized exchanges coexist, right? I do believe that DEXs that are able to be attached to centralized exchanges, like AtomicDex is doing right now, right? We have market makers that are basically mirroring centralized exchange volumes and order books to the DEX. So we're sort of like interconnecting these layers, right, to drive like liquidity, etc., which is also one of the reasons that I believe that the DEX sector is still lacking the users. But first of all, I believe it's the technology status, right? Komodo's DEX, AtomicDex, is the only DEX in the industry that's available right now as a public beta application in the Play stores. I mean, it's desktop ready, it's web ready, and it's mobile ready. We don't have any other solutions right now in the market. There are a lot of projects that aim to provide a decentralized exchange and to develop this, but we just don't see production-ready applications. We do not see these end-user products, right? That a user wants to download an app and it needs to work. It needs to work like smoothly, right? And so I think regardless of the risk associated, linked to centralized exchanges, users are still gonna like prefer a centralized exchange unless they personally feel safe using a decentralized exchange. And I mean, recently we have already seen that, for example, Bitcoin deposits, they reached like the lowest point since 2016 or 2015, just like recently, right? So we already do see users, holders moving their funds away from centralized exchanges, as we all know that this is like just a really a cheap target for malicious actors. And I'm sure, like I'm really sure that we will see a shift from centralized exchange to decentralized exchange by the time the technologies reach the stage.
Mm-hmm. Now, another argument for using a DEX instead of using a centralized exchange, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Recently the story of Justin Sun, when he kind of bought Steam and he convinced a number of centralized exchanges to actually utilize their customer coins that they were holding for their customers. They utilized those coins to vote with him in the Steam takeover. When it's stories like this, where it's kind of, you see how centralized exchanges, the customer, he doesn't hold the keys, he doesn't hold the coins. This is just another example. Is this something that's possible with a DEX? Would a DEX be able to vote on behalf of its customers? Will DEXs be able to take power away from users' hands like centralized exchanges can?
I think it depends. It heavily depends on the implementation, on the project. I mean, I myself say no, it should never be possible, right? A DEX should really never maintain any sort of control over the user's data or funds, right? I mean, a DEX can be used to trade data, to trade funds, to trade digital items, whatsoever. A DEX, and I believe this is like the most important aspect of a DEX, the most important technical requirement, is that the absolute control over a coin needs to be maintained by a user until the moment of trade. Mm-hmm. There should be like no reason, never really. And if you're using a DEX, which is sort of like trying to take like some sort of like custodial function during trades, etc., you should like really rethink like, is this what you want to use? For me, as well as for all developers, blockchain experts, and engineers that I'm collaborating with, that I'm working with, we pretty much agree that in a decentralized exchange, uh, the trust should be based on math, right? In a centralized exchange, the math is basically based on trust. So it's like the other way around, and that's not something we want to see in indexes. So I believe that should like never be the case, and a user needs to be aware of this. A user needs to check this, needs to check out what he's using, make sure that your DEX that you're using isn't doing this.
I completely agree. Now, with COVID-19, this whole pandemic, it's showing us kind of how easily regular workdays and workflows can be disruptive in today's world. Do you think that more of the world, once this is all over, will move towards DEXs, DAOs, and other decentralized solutions for doing business?
I believe so. I believe like in a post-pandemic world that not just like blockchain technology, not necessarily our sector, but the decentralized technology itself, right? I mean, it's a huge sector, right? We have so many protocols. Many of them aren't really related to blockchain, but they're using like same visions, same technologies, same underlying architectures and designs of systems. And I heavily believe that this technology can help us, first of all, make sure we don't get into such a situation again, not regarding the health issues now in particular, but especially this economic aspect, right? I mean, we've seen many companies, many people were just not prepared. They weren't prepared for this. Whereas we, the blockchain sector, the people who are already working isolated, right? I mean, we're developers. I'm sometimes spending a 3 days, 16 hours a day without leaving even my room. I'm coding, right? And I think this is something that the world is gonna like learn, right? I mean, now we're going through this sort of like deglobalization phase with this pandemic. And I think that afterwards it's gonna like move to the exact opposite. We're gonna see like more utilization of decentralized technologies that leave the control to the user, right? No one can shut your communication medium down. No one can basically block you from accessing your data. No one has control over your financials. This is blockchain technology. This is trustless technology, and this is what we want, and this is what we should have.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, no one knows when this will end or how the world will look, but let's do hope for both our sakes that the world does take upon themselves more blockchain solutions. Now, one of your guys' solutions, AtomicDex, as you mentioned, it does enable trading between Ethereum and Bitcoin and back. Now, recent headlines showed that the daily average transaction value on Ethereum now equals that of the Bitcoin network at $1.5 billion. Is this stat more important than a coin's individual value because it shows how much people actually use the network? Is it completely meaningless because everyone with their Bitcoin is just hodling it? Or is the answer somewhere in between?
To be honest with you, I'll just like reflect my personal opinion, which is that we have like to completely distinguish between technology and market, right? To me, these are like two completely separate things. And same to these metrics, right? Volume, market metrics. I believe they do have some expression power to a certain degree, but we shouldn't heavily rely on these numbers, right? I mean, especially since this is all taking place on centralized exchanges, centralized trading platforms. I mean, we know the issues that do exist, right? And speaking about wash trading, etc., right? We don't even know if these volumes are real, right? And it's really tough to track this back unless you have full access to a centralized exchanges database, okay? It's something that I always try to highlight, always try to like re-explain that we just don't know, right? The answer to your question is I do not know. I try to keep a healthy distance to these metrics, to market specific data, because to me, it has like absolutely no technical value, like zero. It doesn't tell me anything about the project, about the technology, about the reliability of the technology. And I believe we should enjoy this with a certain caution.
Now, and so what numbers or statistics would you look at? The number of developers on a platform, the amount of work, or at least discussion happening on the forums? What number is important for you when it does come to a blockchain?
It's what just you mentioned, right? It's a combination of these. It's like the number of devs. Who are these devs, right? If I'm heavily interested in a project, I'm going to reach out to the devs. I'm going to start a heavy technical discussion, right? I want to see, what is this? Does it have the power to improve our world, right? Is it something that we could potentially reuse? Is it something that we could potentially integrate in our technology or even collaborate and sort of build a coexisting layer, a mid layer, whatsoever, right? A fusion, right? Even these are things that we think about. But I think the most important aspects are what's going on development wise, right? I mean, you could have like 100 devs, but not much going on, right? So what I personally do when I check out the project is I would check out the source code of the project. I would try to give it a test in an isolated environment, and I'll try to understand the vision, the idea behind the project, regardless of the white paper, regardless what the website tells me, regardless what these PR videos tell me. Just like from the application itself, from the source code, what is this, right? Is it gonna like really improve our world? And in most cases, I get a pretty straight answer myself, right, for the question I'm asking. And I immediately know, right, if this is really something like useful, something that has potential, or if it's basically just like a source code skeleton and a sort of just trying to underline the statements of a white paper to make a quick buck out of it, right? This is like a problem we have in our industry, in our space. Many projects do claim certain like technology creation, etc., but there's not much happening. So these numbers of developers, the community, the ongoing discussions, a combination of this will basically tell you if it's a potential, a promising project or not. But like forget the market. Like the market is completely unreliable metric for me. Like really, it's something that I try to always highlight and point out.
Well, Kenan, thank you so much for being one of those developers contributing to the blockchain projects. And thank you so much for joining us and helping reveal what's going on behind the scenes. Looking forward to speaking to you next time. And for all of our viewers at home, if you want more on blockchain, cryptocurrency, and tech news, make sure to check us out at blocktv.com.
Watch us on Amazon Fire TV and Roku.